Okay, when we look at this, ladies and gentlemen, why I did this is I wanted you to be able to check to see, all right, am I taking good enough notes? When I watch the video, are my notes good enough? Now, obviously, if you don't have notes, they're not good enough. Okay? If you couldn't answer these 5 questions, okay, you probably don't have good enough notes. Now, looking and walking around, I could see that a lot of people didn't know what an oxyacid was. Okay? So let's talk about an oxyacid to start with. Okay? Oxyacid, obviously, there is oxygen involved in it. Okay? Obviously, oxygen's involved in it. Now, what we have with an oxyacid is we have oxygen with some other element, usually, but not always, usually it's a nonmetal. So look at your polyatomic list. Okay, take out your PAL. Look at your PAL. If I would have an acid with sulfate, fine sulfate, SO4, 2 minus. Okay? Do I have oxygen? Yes. Do I have some other element? Yes, sulfur. So that would be considered an oxyacid. It's sulfuric acid. Okay? What's another combination of oxygen with another element? Huh? Where at? Okay, tetraborate. Okay, I've never heard of the acid with tetraborate, but it would be tetraboric acid. I don't know if it exists or not, but I suppose it could. We could look it up. Okay, so any of those that have oxygen with another element, if they would make an acid, we would consider that an oxyacid. The general form of an acid is HY, where Y is what? Y is what? Monoatomic or a polyatomic anion. Okay? So the general form, hydrogen leads off. I can only think of 2 right now off the top of my head that are not acids that begin with hydrogen. Okay? And that is water, H2O, and hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. Those are the only 2 that I can think of right now off the top of my head that begin with H, that we do not use these rules. Now, we're going to get into rules 2, 1, 2, and 3 as we're doing these problems. Now, rule number 1. Rule number 1 tells you that you have an IDE ending, correct? For the anion. IDE ending, so it says hydro, stem with ic. Rule number 2 tells you that there's an ITE ending, right? Then you just take the base of the word and add OUS plus the word acid. Rule number 3 tells you that there's an ATE ending, right? ATE ending means that you take the base, add IC, and then put the word acid. All right? So it's important that you memorize these acid rules. Look at your PAL. Is there anything on your PAL there that does not end in IDE, ITE, or ATE? Well, that's a cation, though, okay? Ammonium, obviously the very first one, top left, but that's a cation. How about if I rephrase? Okay, objection, rephrase. You mock trial people. Okay? Any anion that does not end in IDE, ITE, ATE. There aren't any, are there? So these three rules cover every anion on that sheet, don't they? So, let's go through and let's work some of these. We've got 5 of them right there, don't we? Or 6 of them. We'll try to get through as many as possible. All right? But I look here, the very first one could confuse you. All right? Could confuse you because if you just glance at it, you're going to think that there's hydro in front of it, aren't you? Is there hydro in front of it? No, that's hypo. Okay? That's hypo. So, I look at this. I know it's an acid, obviously, because it says acid at the end of it. So what I need to immediately do is I need to look at my ending. My ending is what? OUS. Okay? OUS tells me that the anion ends in what 3 letters? ITE. So this is hypochlorite. What is the formula for hypochlorite? ClO. And what's its charge? 1 minus. Now, all I need to do is, since I have 1 minus, hydrogens are +1. How many hydrogens do I need to make that equal to 0? 1. So I get that charge out of there, and I add my 1 hydrogen, and I've just now written the formula for hypochlorous acid. Now, my second one here, I see the word acid, so right here, I look at the ending. When I think of these, folks, I think of this, ICIC, okay? If I see an IC, it's got to be rule 1 or 3, right? ICIC 1 or 3. I need to then check, is there a hydro in front? Yes, there is, so I'm dealing with rule number 1, right? So, I'm dealing with IODIDE, IDE, iodide. What is the iodide anion? I, 1 minus. So how am I going to write this acid? HI. Hydroiodic acid. Moving on. Here I've got carbonic acid. I see 1 or 3. Which one is this? 3, because there's no hydro. So that tells me, what is my ending? ATE. So I'm dealing with carbonate, right? Carbonate. What is carbonate? CO3, 2 minus, right? So this is a new one because I'm going to need how many hydrogens? How many hydrogens? I'm going to need 2. And get rid of that charge. Do I ever leave those charges up there? I saw some of that happening on your entrance slip. We don't have charges when we're writing formulas. Okay, we get those out of there. Now, we're going the other way. We're going the other way. Now, I've got to write the name. So, as I'm writing the name, I look to see what my anion is. What is my anion in this case? SO3. And what's the charge going to be? That's a crud-ruck O. SO3. And what's its charge going to be? How do I know 2 minus? Because there's 2 hydrogens, correct? So, what is SO3? Sulfite, right? Sulfite. What rule am I dealing with? Rule number 2, dealing with an ITE. Now, sulfur's a funny one because to make it more fluent, we put that UR back in, and then we add OUS. So we put that UR back in. So just remember, sulfate's like that, phosphorus is like that too. Okay? We put that UR back in there. So the only thing I need now is what? The word acid at the end. Let's look at the next one. The next one tells me that my anion is BO3, 3 minus. What is BO3, 3 minus? Borate. So what rule am I looking at? Rule number 3, which tells me take the base and add a IC and then acid. Boric acid. My final one. My final one is simply an F. What's the charge of F? 1 minus. How again do I know that? There's only 1 hydrogen. So, what is F1 minus? Fluoride. What rule am I dealing with? Rule number 1. What does rule number 1 tell me? Add hydro. Change IDE to IC. And the word acid. Hydrofluoric acid. So, these are pretty straightforward, ladies and gentlemen, if you memorize your acid rules. Okay? Now, once again, every single acid that you will ever see will begin with the letter H. Whether there's 1 of them, whether there's 2 of them, whether there's 3 of them. Okay? So how do I identify an acid? I look for that letter H. Okay? What 2 did I tell you are not? Water, hydrogen peroxide. Okay? Any questions for me?